So in 10.1, they also talk about recognizing cube root functions. And so this is a really nice table here. It shows you what the formula looks like, the function, then an example of the table, and then the way it behaves, what it looks like on the graph. So let's take a look at that particular setup together. So I'm looking at cube root functions. Okay, so it looks like f of x equal to the cube root of x. Okay, and if we do a graph, you just go to our calculator and go to y equals. We'll clear this out. And there's a couple ways to put in the cube root. So the one that I see that's pretty quick is hitting the second button, and then actually you don't hit the second button. You hit the math button. So I hit the math button, and you see the 3 right here automatically. That's the cubic root. So you hit 4. And so you get the 3 there automatically. And then you just type in an x. So now I'm just going to do zoom 6. And this is how it behaves. Okay, it does this wiggle or graph where it looks like a parabola, but one side's going in the opposite direction of the other. And so that's that look. So if I did a graph of that, it will do something like this, like a curve, and then it'll also do it like that. And so this is the setup. If I wanted to do wanted to know the domain of this particular function, then basically the interval notation would be from infinity, negative infinity, to positive infinity. So it's all real numbers. So parentheses, negative infinity to infinity. Okay, and so this is how it typically behaves. So if we were to look at some equations like that, let's say we were looking at f of x equal to the cubic root of x squared minus 1. That's a 2. Okay, and we look at that behavior on the calculator. So y equals, hit clear. We'll type in the math button. We'll do number 4. And then we type in x to the power of 2. And then it'll be minus 1. Okay. So now if I graph that by hitting graph, you can see how it behaves. So this is going on for this one. The domain is also infinity, negative infinity to infinity. For the range, though, that's a little different here. It gets so to a certain point. So let's say I'd like to zoom in on this. A new feature that I've never shown anybody yet is the Z box. So you go to zoom and we click the Z box. So we pick 1. Nothing happens, but you do have access to your cursor. So I move it with left to right. I kind of put it into the far left corner. When you hit enter, it locks it. As you move down, it starts to generate a box, which is your new zoom window. So let's say I wanted to zoom to that. I could hit enter, and now it will zoom to that particular feature. So it looks like it goes down to 1 and then it stops. And that makes sense because I could analyze that. How do I get that to be 1? And so I could type in a certain number that would get me to 1. So that's what's going on there. So the actual range would be something like bracket -1 all the way up to positive infinity, and then it has a parentheses. And so that's really what this one would be in this particular case on that setup. So this is what one looks like. Let's do another one we do f of x equal to the third root of what's that, 2 minus x squared. Okay, so if I actually graph that, I could do, so hit clear, I'll hit math, and 3. Okay, oop, I don't want that, so clear. So math, I want 4. Okay, and I type in a 2 minus an x squared. I hit enter and graph. Now it's going to do a different direction downwards. Okay, so they take on some really strange forms, these cubic roots. If we wanted to look at these two equations, this one here and this one here, and we wanted to know how to evaluate them, let's do that. Let's say we're doing f of negative 3 here on this one. So this particular equation. Then we would do the cubic root of negative 3 squared minus 1. So we always do what's inside, so the negative 3 squared would give me 9. This is positive. And then 9 minus 1 is 8. And so the cubic root of 8 would actually be 2. So my f of negative 3 is going to make a 2 on that particular function. If I do a number for this particular function, I said it was a 1. Okay, I put 1 in, so then I get 2 minus 1, because 1 squared is just 1. And then the cubic root of 2 minus 1 is 1. And so the cubic root of 1 is just 1. Let's try it with the negative 3, see how that works. So we'll do 2 minus a negative 3 squared. Okay. And then we have, this becomes positive 9, but it's negative when it comes out of the whole, this group here. And so it's just 9, so it becomes negative 9. And then we have 2 minus 9, which is negative 7. And that doesn't work. So we have to stop there. So we could write it this way if we wanted to on this particular problem, or we could take the negative out and make it the cubic root of 7 if we wanted to. But in the case of this, you would have to write it one way or the other on that case. Okay, and that's basically it. We can try that on our calculator. So go to clear, and we'll type that in. We can go to math, and we go to 4. We'll type in the negative 7 and hit enter. And so we do get a decimal answer. And that's the same thing as minus the cubic root of 7. So we get the same answer. So we can have the negative in or out because it's cubic root, basically. And so that's the end of the cubic root explanation.